There are no hijinks in novels today, a literary critic recently wrote. By that, I guess he means that perhaps literary writers take themselves and their craft a bit too seriously, that they don't let rip. I think writers are fearful about writing or tweeting. Tweeting is a form of writing the wrong thing about, or writing ambiguously about certain issues that the cognoscenti in their closed circles have deemed to be one way or another, social issues like gender, race, presidents, war. There's a lot of pressure these days for writers to pick a side and to follow the tenets of that side to the letter, because if they don't, perhaps they become persona non grata, perhaps they no longer have a place to publish their work. And I think that puts constraints on writers, and they don't fall into hijinks, a kind of joyful rebellion against or fuck you to convention. And these days, instead of looking for those hijinks in contemporary writers, I look for it in comedians like Bill Burr, Shane Gillis, Dave Chappelle, although perhaps Dave Chappelle has become a little bit too much, or fallen a bit too much in love with his own wisdom. And of course, the late Norm Macdonald, whose book, based on a true story, not a memoir, I'm going to review and talk about today. The memoir, or the not a memoir, was published in 2016 by Random House. And then 5 years later, Norm Macdonald was dead. He died September 13th, 2021 of cancer, something he kept hidden for a long period of time. He became famous when he got the job of anchor on Weekend Update, that section of Saturday Night Live. He had that job between 1994 and 1998, and then was booted from that position, and then ultimately left the program, apparently because the then president of NBC Entertainment, Don Ohlmeyer, did not like how ruthless Norm Macdonald was in his mockery of Ohlmeyer's friend, O.J. Simpson. There's a great bit about this in the book. Not that you learn the details of the situation. The writing is just too absurdist and ridiculous for that. But you definitely get a sense of the essence of the dispute. It's the most scathing, wild, and unpredictable kind of mockery. This parody of the system, of Ohlmeyer, and even of Macdonald himself. His biography is really the launching point for all of his hijinks. He writes about the movie that he made, that he wrote and starred in, Dirty Work, that also featured Artie Lang, Chevy Chase, Don Rickles, Adam Sandler. He talks about his gambling triumphs and defeats. There are his first appearances on late night talk shows. That famous joke that he told on the Conan O'Brien show of the moth who went to the podiatrist, that's also in the book, although I prefer seeing him tell the joke. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one, and I'll also put a link to the interview that he gave to Larry King about this book. Also, there's the great, this isn't in the book, but the great his last appearance on Letterman, when he talks about the Germans, when he says, I don't know if you guys are history buffs, but the more I learn about this guy Hitler, the lesser my opinion of him. I mean, he has this voice, or he created this voice of this bumpkin, this hick, who's out of the loop. And it's just such sophisticated humor. It's almost as though the punchlines don't matter with him. The worse the punchline, the better. It's just dazzling, or it was dazzling, to watch what came out of his mouth. You never really knew what was going to come. He had you off kilter. And bang, suddenly he'd hit you with a line that you didn't expect. And really, that is the heart of Based on a True Story. At first, I thought the book was going to be serious. He writes about his childhood for the first 30 pages. He describes his dad, this hardworking, dirt-poor Canadian farmer with a dry sense of humor. He portrays this idyllic relationship between him, Norm Macdonald, and this farmhand named Old Jack. And then suddenly, there's this scene with Old Jack, purposely opaque, that sent chills down my spine. And then, the next chapter, from 8 years old to 13 years old, that's the name of the chapter, it's just 2 words. I forget. So I'm thinking, is he writing about trauma? Is he being funny? Is he trying to be funny about trauma? This is what I mean by he leaves you off kilter all the time. And then after that, after he leaves his child, he launches into about 140 pages where he really can do no wrong. It's a comic tour de force. He talks about his early years in comedy. He tells this great anecdote about Sam Kinison, who he opened for many years at the beginning of his career. He writes about being hired at Saturday Night Live. He writes about his relationships with the cast members. It's great stuff. His first appearances on Letterman, like I say, about missed opportunities. He portrays himself as this kind of dim-witted celebrity with an overinflated opinion of himself. This kind of has-been who's both aware of being a has-been and not aware of it. And he's got this pathetic punching bag of a sidekick named Adam Egret. He goes to jail. Norm Macdonald goes to jail. He gets out. He has this near-death experience. There are appearances by Don Rickles, by Lorne Michaels. God appears. God appears. The dialogue of God, unbelievable. Unbelievable dialogue from God. The twisted and depraved hijinks, I would say, hit a high point when Norm Macdonald decides to help this terminally ill child make his dying wish come true. Off the charts, bizarre stuff, hilarious. Or maybe it's when he's writing about the filming of Dirty Work, which coincided, I guess, with this spree from this serial killer. The chapters in this book seem more than crafted, they seem almost to have been channeled from some place deep within Norm Macdonald. He was in a state of grace for those 140 pages, I'd say. Maybe in the last quarter of the book, a little bit less, he's not quite hitting all cylinders. Maybe the standard drops a bit, but I'm telling you, the book will keep you off kilter the whole way through. It will fuck with you. And so the humor will keep hitting. You won't see the cracks coming. Look, man, this book is a blast to read. It is hijinks as art. It is hijinks as voice. And perhaps for us literary writers, it will serve as a way to loosen us up so that we do let rip a bit more.